Hey everyone, it's Miss Lexi. In this video, I'm going to be talking about multiplying fractions. We're going to go through the steps and a few different examples. We're going to go through examples of multiplying a fraction times a whole number, a fraction times a fraction, and a mixed number times a fraction or a mixed number. Okay, so the first two we're going to look at are just a fraction times a whole number. So when we multiply a fraction times a whole number, we want to make that whole number into a fraction. So to do that, any whole number can be placed over 1 to make it a fraction. Because if we rewrite this problem as 2/3 times 18 over 1, or 18 ones, we can think about that as we could have simplified 18 divided by 1 to equal 18, because we can divide any number by 1 and still get that number. So whenever we have a whole number and we're dealing with fractions, we can make it into a fraction by just making the whole number the numerator and make the denominator on the bottom 1. Okay, so now that we have two fractions, we're just going to multiply straight across. So for multiplication, we just multiply our numerators for our product's numerator, and we multiply the denominators for the product's denominator. So I have my numerators, 2 times 18. And if you're not sure of that, we can always write it off to the side. So we can do 18 times 2, because I always want to put my bigger number first. I do 2 times 8, which is 16, carry my 1. 2 times 1 is 2, plus 1, 3. So 18 times 2 equals 36. That's our numerator. Now to find the denominator, we multiply 3 times 1, which equals 3. Now, 36/3 is an improper fraction. We have to simplify that. And remember, our fractions are always division problems. So we can think of this as 36 divided by 3. And when we do 36 divided by 3, we say 3 can go into 3 one time, and 1 times 3 is 3. We subtract 3 minus 3 is 0, and we bring the 6 down. Now, 6 divided by 3 is 2, and 2 times 3 equals 6, and 6 minus 6 equals 0. That means we have no remainder. So 36 divided by 3 equals, or is simplified to be, the whole number 12. So when we multiply 2/3 times 18, our answer is 12. And if we think about 2/3 of 18 is 12, because if we divide 18 by 3, we get 6, and 6 times 2 equals 12. So now let's look at number 2. 3/4 times 6. Well, let's rewrite it with two fractions so that our 3/4 stays the same. And our 6, our whole number 6, becomes 6 over 1. Now we can multiply straight across. 3 times 6 is 18. And 4 times 1 is 4. Now we have to do some division again because this is an improper fraction, because our numerator is larger than our denominator. So 18 divided by 4. 4 can go into 1 0 times, or I can put a little x to hold my place value. Now 4 can go into 18 4 times. 4 times 4 is 16. When I subtract, I get 2. So 2 is my remainder. And we can write it as 4r2, or 4 remainder 2. But I'm going to change this 2 and make it my fraction. So I'm going to keep my remainder, or my difference when I subtract it, becomes the numerator. And my denominator is going to stay the same. Whatever we had in our original number, or our divisor out front, becomes our denominator. So we have 4 and 2/4 as being our simplest form. When I look at that 2/4, well, I know that 2/4 we can simplify because those are both even numbers. So if I divide by 2, my whole number 4 stays the same. I'm not doing anything to it. So I'm just going to write it below. 4, the whole number 4 stays the same. And my fraction now, 2 divided by 2 is 1, and 4 divided by 2 is 2, because 2/4 is the same as 1/2. So that is now written in simplest form. Okay, so that's multiplying a fraction times a whole number. Now, if we have two fractions being multiplied together, we don't have to change anything. We're just going to multiply straight across. And then if we need to simplify at the end. So 2 times 1 is 2. 3 times 5 is 15. Now, the only way I can simplify 2 is by dividing by 2. And we can't divide 15 by 2. So that's our answer in simplest form. Pretty easy. Now the next one, 3/4 times 1/6. Let's multiply our numerators on top. 3 times 1 is 3. And then our denominators on the bottom, 4 times 6, which equals 24. Now, when I think of my factors of 3, my factors of 3 would be 1 and 3. And my factors of 24 are 1 times 24, 2 times 12, 3 times 8, and 4 times 6. So we have a common factor in these two. So we have a 3 here and a 3 here. That means I can divide both the numerator and the denominator by 3 to simplify. So 3 divided by 3 is 1. 24 divided by 3 is 8. And if you see the chart, under the 24, we have 3, and next to it is 8, because 3 times 8 is 24. So if you do the T-chart to list your factors to check if you can simplify, you have your answer next to it already. You don't even have to do the division again. Okay? So our answer now, simplified, is 1/8. All right, and now let's look at a couple examples of mixed numbers multiplied by a mixed number. In number 5, we have 1 2/3 times 3 4/5. Now, when I'm multiplying mixed numbers, I want to change my mixed number into an improper fraction. So remember that from 4th grade. And to do that, I like to do the C. So 2 arrows. When we do 3 times 1, and then we add our numerator of 2. So 3 times 1 is 3, plus 2 is 5. So 5 becomes the numerator, and we keep 3 as the denominator. So 1 2/3 is the same as 5/3. And if we think about that, 1/3 would be 3/3. And 3/3 plus 2/3 equals 5/3. So that's how we got that answer. That's just another way you can do it. So now if we have 3 4/5, we have to multiply 5 times 3 is 15. Then we add 4, and 15 plus 4 equals 19. And we keep our 5 as our denominator. So now we have 5/3 times 19/5. And because we have two fractions now, we can multiply straight across. We have 5 times 19. I'm not sure what that is, so I'm going to write it off to the side. And that's fine if you do too. So 19 times 5, let's work it out. 5 times 9 is 45. 5 times 1 is 5, plus 4 is 9. So our numerator is 95. And our denominator is 3 times 5, which is 15. So if I have 95 over 15, or 95/15, I can simplify by doing my division. So I'm going to do 95 divided by 15. Well, when I think of my multiples of 15, I think 15 is 1 times 15. 2 times 15 is 30. 3 times 15 is 45. 4 times 15 is 60, thinking about our clock. 5 times 15 is 75. Now, if I add another 15, that would make 80 is with 5 more, and 90. So 15 times 6 would be 90. Well, I can't add another 15 because I'll get bigger than 95. So that means that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times is 90. And when I subtract, I get a remainder of 5. So my answer becomes 6. My remainder 5 becomes my numerator. And my denominator of 15 stays the same. Now, 6 and 5/15 can also be simplified as 6 and 1/3 because I can divide both my numerator and my denominator by 5. So 5 divided by 5 is 1. 15 divided by 5 is 3. So remember, whatever we do to the numerator, we have to do to the denominator when we simplify. One other thing I want to show you is if we would have gone back to our 5/3 times 19/5. If I see that there's a 5 here and here, I know that both of my factors are both of my numerator and denominator have factors of 5. So if I know they're both going to have factors of 5, I can simplify those 5s in the numerator and the denominator before we even do the multiplication. So I can say that I can divide them both out and make this a 1 and a 1, saying I divide both the numerator and the denominator by 5 to start with. And then we would just get 19/3. And when I do the division for that, 19 divided by 3, I know that 3 can go into 19 6 times, and that's 18. And I subtract, I get 1 remainder. So I get an answer of 6 and 1/3, which is exactly what we got in the first example. That's just a way to reduce the numbers before we do our multiplication. So you can either reduce the fraction before or after. But both ways we get the same answer. All right, and let's look at one more. So if we have 2 and 1/2 times 1 and 1/5, let's make these mixed numbers improper fractions first. So 2 times 2 is 4, and 4 plus 1 is 5. So we have 5/2 times 5 times 1 is 5, plus 1 more is 6/5. All right, we've multiplied straight across. 5 times 6 is, think about it, 30. And 2 times 5 is 10. Now, if I do 30 divided by 10, I know that 30 divided by 10 equals 3. All right, and I want to show you how we could simplify before. We could have, if we had our 5/2 times 6/5, we could have simplified these 5s by dividing by 5 to both and making them 1. And then we would get 6/2 because 1 times 6 is 6 and 2 times 1 is 2. And 6 divided by 2 is still 3. So either way works because originally we just divided by 10, and we got 3/1, which equals 3. It's the same thing. So you can either simplify before you multiply or after, whatever you prefer. All right. So I hope this helps you guys when you're multiplying fractions or mixed numbers. And check out some of my other videos as well to help you through some math while you're working at home. All right. See you guys soon.